Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown. And I got this really funny comment. Someone wrote me and said, Pat Brown, I just read this blog you did. And have you changed your mind since 2014 when you wrote it? I mean, oh my gosh, do you not realize that the McCanns might be guilty of having something to do with the disappearance of their daughter? Have you changed your mind now? And I'm like, what in God's name is she talking about? I'm like, I was really confused. So I went back and found the blog she was talking about. And I'm going to read you the blog because this goes to show how people do not pay attention. People do not get things. And it just amuses me. And I think this I wrote back in 2014. And this is when Scotland Yard had gotten involved with the Operation Grange and their remit to not look at the McCanns as suspects, but to look for that abductor. And I'm going to read it to you because I think you're going to find it funny. Obviously, if you haven't been around for many years on this case, you may not get a clue of what I'm talking about. But if you have been around for the last more than a decade, you're going to get, I think, an amusement out of this. And keep in mind, this woman actually thought that I believed what I wrote in this blog. And she didn't catch the certain little clues. And I'm like, oh, but anyway, this happens all the time, but I just thought it was really funny. So anyway, I'm going to read it to you. I wrote this at Women in Crime, Inc. It's called The Agony of the McCanns is Over. Scotland Yard solves the case of missing Maddie by Pat Brown. It has been a long 6 years for Kate and Jerry McCann. After the Portuguese police bungled the investigation of the kidnapping of their daughter Madeleine, who was abducted from their vacation flat in Praia de Luz on May 3rd, 2007, the McCanns have endured being made suspects in their own daughter's disappearance and then suffered years of fruitless searching by their own private investigators, never coming any closer to finding out what had happened to their daughter. In 2011, the Met, New Scotland Yard, launched Operation Grange, spending 2 years and nearly £10 million following every lead and tip generated by the PJ and the McCann's PIs, and whatever happened after May 3rd, making absolutely no progress at all. But in a stunning turnabout, just as the McCann's libel trial against Gonzalo Amaral comes to a close, Andy Redwood. Do you remember Andy Redwood? This is not in here, but do you remember Andy Redwood, who was this big guy all of a sudden, and then he just vanished into the woodwork? Andy Redwood of Scotland Yard has uncovered who kidnapped Madeleine McCann and what they have done with her, according to an unidentified source of Bullock's Media. When Operation Grange reached no conclusion after an incredible number of man-hours and money had been frittered away, Redwood decided to use a surprising investigative technique. He would go back to the actual events of the evening of the crime. Although he was unable to get the cooperation of the parents of the missing child or cooperation of any of the friends who dined together with the parents on the night Madeleine went missing, he was able to get the cooperation of the television media. And a bunch of actors, including a very capable porn star, and scripted a very believable version of what occurred that evening. Redwood thrilled the public with his incredible breakthrough moment in the case, wherein he disclosed that the Tanner sighting was really that of a vacationer who was wandering around in circles with his child, trying to locate his apartment, which he had misplaced. He then went on to reveal that the Smith sighting was now the correct sighting. And he was looking forward to the public telling him who they thought it was now that they could show the world the sketches the McCanns had hidden for years. Lots of callers identified Jerry McCann. But a couple of folks said it was a burglar that they knew from the neighborhood, and the pieces fell into place. Redwood discovered that a flurry of phone calls had been made by a 3-man burglary ring that this man was a part of. A number before 10 p.m. and another number of phone calls a couple of hours later. Today, Scotland Yard detectives have interviewed the men of the burglary ring, and through a clever investigative interrogation method in which the men were asked what they thought a bunch of burglars might have done if they were involved in the crime, they related the following story. Just after Jerry and Kate's friend looked in on the McCann children, one of the burglars entered the apartment through the unlocked sliding door. Although he knew the layout of the apartment and that any valuables would likely be either in the living room or in the large bedroom, for some reason he felt drawn to go into the smaller of the bedrooms first. When he entered the room, a small girl awoke and began screaming, "Ah!" And without thinking of the possible results, a startled burglar put his hand over her mouth. Being a small child, his hand accidentally covered her nose as well. And after a short time, the girl stopped breathing. Thinking he had quieted the girl, the burglar released his hand and then made the horrific discovery that he had smothered the child. Panicked, he called his fellow burglars on their cells to ask, "What should I do?" One of the burglars posted himself at the back of the flat, the others in the front, and the burglar inside raised the window. And when all was clear, he passed the deceased child through the window to the burglar waiting outside. Having worn gloves to the burglary, no prints were left in the apartment. The burglar, receiving the body of Madeleine, then carried the child to his Prior de Luge flat, passing by the Smith family on the way. One of the burglars went to retrieve his boat, and the other patrolled the area between the flat and the beach. During this time, the trio kept in touch by cell phone. When the streets became quiet enough to quickly move Madeleine's body from the apartment to the boat, the action was completed, and Madeleine's body was disposed at sea. Scotland Yard is hoping that the Portuguese prosecutor will arrest the three suspects and take the case forward to court. However, they feel this is unlikely because the Portuguese prosecutor claims there is insufficient evidence due to the PJ mishandling of the case for 6 years. There is no physical evidence remaining after all this time, and there is a refusal on the part of the suspects to make a full confession. Kate and Jerry McCann have issued a statement thanking Andy Redwood for absolving them of any wrongdoing in the death of their daughter and uncovering a story of her death which is not too awful. They also want the public to know that the fund will remain active until Madeleine's body is found and brought home for a proper internment. This news-like article is brought to you by Bullocks Media and criminal profiler Pat Brown, January 14th, 2014. And somebody thought this was actually a real media article that I don't know how they missed the clues, like Bullocks Media. You think? Anyway, people do miss information and accept misinformation. And this is why this case goes on for years. And you have two sides. You have a side that believes that the McCanns had something to do with what happened to the daughter. And you have the other side, which absolutely believes they're innocent 100%. And Scotland Yard has done a great job. And now, we've got the German fellow. He's clearly a pedophile, and although there's zero evidence linking him to the crime, well, he must have done it. So, you have people jumping on things, not looking at evidence, not actually listening to what is being said, not actually look at what is being stated. So you get this quite often. But I thought you might enjoy this. When I saw that, I'm like, what is she talking about? and I hadn't even seen this article that I'd written. It's obviously, this was satire. And I wrote it many years ago after the Scotland Yard nonsense of finding, who the Tanner suspect was and who the Smith guy was. I mean, it was such malarkey. Oh my God. I mean, I couldn't believe the stuff that was coming. I think a lot of people have forgotten that whole episode where Andy Redwood was running around claiming he had actually found the guy. I mean, and I think the Tanner guy actually had the clothing his daughter was wearing that year, the pajamas that his little infant or 3-year-old daughter was wearing that year, as if you would keep 3-year-old, your 3-year-old daughter's clothes around now that she's grown up. You just have it lying about. Oh, look, that's what she was wearing that night. See? I mean, it was the most ludicrous thing ever. But this is the kind of crap, people just glom onto, instead of using some skills of logic and not so much emotion, and not just, accepting everything they see that's out there, to step back and say, does this make sense? So anyway, I just wanted to bring that to you just because I thought it was funny. If you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. I do have some things on the Madeleine McCann case, and I may put up some more. And you might want to check below my link to my book and on Madeleine McCann called Disappearance of Madeleine McCann, Profile of the Disappearance of Madeleine McCann. Check that out. And I hope you enjoyed this. In spite of the horrificness of this case and how long it's gone on, there's just some things that are just really hard to believe actually happened. But actually, they did. See you next time. Bye.